Hello, Intent to Injure, and welcome to the Week 20 recap and the Week 21 preview. We have a lot to bring to you today. Eric Zaleski and Austin Revito coming to you live. And we are sponsored, I feel like this is an appropriate time, we are sponsored today by Brugger's Bagels. Brugger's, drink early, drink often, eat often. Brugger's. We also brought to you today by Core Power, the official protein drink of the Intent to Injure podcast, and by Mr. Hyde, the official pre-workout of the Intent to Injure podcast. So we thank all of our sponsors. We're doing really well in that regards, to say the least.
Yeah.
We've got the ABC Sports theme pumping in the background. I'm just going to let that play out. We got 20 seconds going.
That's rare.
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
So don't mind us kind of eating today. Obviously, it's been a while since we made a podcast. The scheduling has been a little bit tight, so we're just trying to squeeze this one in for you. We have a lot to bring to you, a little bit of time to do it. So let's get it on. So let's start. We'll start with Week 20, last week. And there's really only two games I want to reference. And as we start to near the end of the season here, we're into our final 3 weeks of play. As we talk about fantasy, kind of the teams that we talk about are going to be narrow. So if you're in the bottom half of the league,
don't expect to be referenced.
Yeah. At least in terms of fantasy, of course.
Yeah, we'll reference you, but it's more be a
Yeah.
shaming than anything else.
Probably more or less. But the two games I did want to talk about from last week. One, let's talk about your game, and you mentioned that you actually had no idea that this was the case.
I didn't know it was this close. I knew it was like a 10-point game, and then something happened, and then I felt like I was like, okay, I don't have to watch this. Like, I don't care anymore. But then I just like closed my computer. But apparently you have. So
the matchup was in your newly team name, the King of Quarter Zips, which I openly admit I'm a little bit jealous about. I felt that maybe we could have co-owned that title, but that's neither here nor there. You came up with the first. Could have
been like czars, czars of Quarter Zips,
something
1
like
and
that,
2, or A and B.
And if I lose, maybe the team name does get changed, and that happens.
He will no longer be Talkett's Books.
No, we're riding that name to the finish line. But
that's fair.
So King Quarter Zips versus Madonna Auto Goal 95, and a couple of potential playoff teams going at it here. And this game had more implications for John than it did you, as you're comfortably into a playoff spot at this point. But John came into the game. And I never know if these are the updated records here. I think they are. So you were 15-4, and John was 12-7 coming into the game.
Correct. Yeah, those are updated because it's Week 20.
Yeah, and John was sliding a little bit here. He came in loser of 2 straight. And so the situation in this game, it came down to Sunday night. You had Eddie Lack, the Vancouver goalie, and John had Jake Allen, the St. Louis goalie.
And I also have Elliott. So I wasn't even thinking. Like, I could have just accidentally. But thank God I looked. I actually remember looking in there. I was like, oh, shit, Elliott's not going to start.
What?
So I went.
There was a point where Elliott did get in the game. And I don't know if he started the game or if Jake started the game.
No, Elliott, definitely didn't start that game.
I think Allen started, Elliott came in, and then Allen came back in. It was a real weird situation as I tuned into this game, and we'll explain why and as we go over our next matchup. But as the game progressed, we realized, and I was in a group chat with Jake Boss, Blake Wheeler, and Sam Mendelson, the Jonathan Quickies owner, and we realized, so this game heads to a shootout. You're up by 4.8 points. So
it couldn't have been 5.1, and we could have called it a day. Yeah.
So as we all know, a goalie victory gets you 5 points. So if St. Louis wins, Jake Allen gets an extra 5 points, and John wins the week by 0.2. If Eddie Lack wins, you maintain your 4.8 lead goes up to a 9.8, and that's exactly what happened.
Right.
So you hung on there, and as you said, you had no idea this was going on. I was going to text you. I actually figured you were watching.
Well, I was watching the game, and then I was like, I think I have this one, and I mean, you can't. I'm not really entertained right now on a Sunday night watching Vancouver Blue.
Yeah.
It was
I turned late Sunday night.
It was
around midnight.
It was a good game, it was a good game in my perspective because we were winning like 4-1, and then like I see the next morning it ended 6-5 in a shootout. I was like, oh shit, like. The Blues came back, apparently, yeah.
The Blues were down at 1 point, 5-2 in the third period, and rattled off 3 goals to send it to a shootout, and then, so, obviously, Vancouver ends up winning. You win the week, and that's a tough loss for John, because that bumps him down in the standings, and he now finds himself in a 3-way tie. We've done this before.
I know, I didn't have the caffeine on. No, we're good though. It's still recording. Are we still here?
We are.
Okay. We gotta click that little guy.
So you end up winning this week 114.2 to 106. That was a heck of a matchup. And the other one, ironically enough,
Same game.
Same game. And that's why I was tuned in the first place, because this was Boss versus Mendelssohn, two teams that are kind of chasing after each other in the standings, battling for a playoff position. They both knew this was a huge week. And it came down to the final day at times. And if you recall, the first two times these guys played,
less than a point.
Both games combined have ended in Mendelssohn's favor by less than 1 point, and it actually looked like it was going to go that way again, as Mendelssohn had at times between a 0.2 to 0.8 lead.
I saw there was 1 point where it was like literally dead even.
Yeah,
and I even looked at both rosters because I was kind of like hoping Jake would win, or not win, but like keep it, close, and then wondering what was going to happen. I didn't realize it almost turned out to be a 10-point victory.
Yeah, so what happened in that game was, I mentioned the Blues came back in the third. The Quickies have TJ Oshie and David Backus, and they both went off. And the Quickies pulled away and got a big victory there. So before we jump into this week's matchups, first off, the winners from Week 20, Talkett's Book Service victorious over Bob's Battling Bandits. The Bandits are officially out of a playoff spot. We mentioned King of Quarter Zips victorious over John Zaleski. Still two teams that are playoff bound. The odd man out in Shawha Panthers, a game that had really no implications as far as playoffs go. The odd man out does get the victory, and the Shawha Panthers, talk about a team that has just fallen off the face of the earth. Unfortunately for Cullen Fawcett, things just haven't been going so well. We did mention already the Quickies victorious over Blake Wheeler. Those two teams now tied at 12-8. And another game that didn't have many implications, the newly named Well There Goes My Season, and he leads the league, I believe, in name changes, Brent Mansfield, had a big week, 150.4 victorious, and no surprise, over Goodnight Jim Kite, and talking about falling off the face of the earth. We've been there and back with that team. So
no, literally, we've been there and back.
Yeah.
Lucky to tell the tale, I think. But.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm sure most of you, and I sent out the text, saw the Rat Cave revealed, and boy, we haven't had a podcast since then, but
we're still actually scarred from that.
I was going to say, I'm a little shooken up still. I mean, I haven't fully recovered. Even when I just hear the word rat, I cringe a little bit now.
I shit you not, there was a Snapchat. I think Jade, some of you know Jade Merman, she lives in New York City now, and she took a Snapchat on the subway, or like on the subway train tracks, and there was like a New York sewer rat running around the tracks, and literally, I defaulted to Ben's house. And, that's so sad. Why is Kevin White? Oh, they're pumping his... They say he's going to be the 4th pick in the draft. Yeah, right. Another West Virginia receiver failing. But, that was... I was, thinking, now I'm, literally Pavlovian conditioned when I think of rat or rat tail or ghosts or knives.
Yeah.
I default to that fucking... What was that? What street was that again? 4th Street, I think? Or no. They were on the cross street. They were.
I don't even want to think about it at this point. I said, I'm sure most of you.
It was scary.
And I feel like, for some reason, I'm still having to defend how bad it really is, because people saw it and somebody were like, oh well, we lived in places
it's a
like
college
that.
house.
Yeah.
No.
Let me just say, the fact that the basement was basically pitch black and we didn't really plan for lighting did the basement justice.
Yeah, I agree.
If that place was fully lit up, you would have a different opinion. And we've actually thought about going back up there to do it, but I don't know if I can muster up.
I don't know if I have the stomach for
trip.
it. There's this the thing is on the camera you can't smell. There's no smell. You guys didn't get the smell. You didn't get the vibrant visuals, the green goop in the freezer. I mean, that was like highlighter green, and we're recording this on an iPhone and then transmitting it to YouTube, so we lose a little quality. The rust in the bathroom. I mean, it was a poignant orange. I mean, it was just grotesque, and the level of filth you feel while you're there makes it worse than watching it on YouTube.
And I said it during the interview, and some of you may have heard this. It kind of went in passing as we rewatched it, but as I was sitting on that couch interviewing Ben after we had toured the house, I said I have kind of this dooming feeling that a bullet's just going to come through my head at any point.
And we were sitting at like it was weird because like if you went from the street level, you could be standing on the street and you would have been level with your head on the couch. So like someone just could have sprayed a bullet right through, and you catch that in the neck.
Just felt very uneasy. I was really relieved to get out of there.
And I don't think enough justice was done or due diligence investigation-wise was done into why Ben was in and out of the house a couple times. He wouldn't take a phone. Wouldn't take a phone call in front of us. I'm assuming it was Cox on the phone because that's who he hung out with later that day. And maybe he was, I don't know, I don't think the word is embarrassed, but maybe he was just reluctant for us to hear what he was talking about, which turns out they went to Applebee's with some females who, you know, there were some possible restrictions on or something to the effect. Well, we'll let that for another day. But, I mean, yeah, that was just a weird... There was just a weird aura of being there. If you ever fucked around with a Ouija board and, like, did it in dark when you were a kid and, like, tried to, like, do a seance and call, like, spirits... apparently I was a really fucked up kid.
Sounds like me.
Well, I mean, yeah, we all ended up at St. Louis somehow. But, like... it was freaking weird, and like I don't believe in ghosts. Like I'm like let me just open with that caveat. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't think there's ghosts. I've never seen a ghost. But just the fact that like Ben was he was you know holistically convinced that there was a ghost throwing knives at a wall, like. I don't know. That just I know Ben's a good grounded person. That's just fucking weird.
Well, I'm not sure grounded's the word I would use to describe.
He's a human being that doesn't believe that there's life on Mars.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's the
yeah, like for me, like if
that's considered grounded,
right? Like if you ask Ben, like, oh, like are there zombies roaming the Earth? He's gonna say no. But
let me just say, you know, and just to conclude this topic here. I'm not a big believer in ghosts. I mean, I don't believe in ghosts. But if you were ever going to see one or feel one or whatever the hell ghosts do, it would have been in that house. It would have been in that basement, probably around either the flowers and or the chairs turned facing the wall.
Or the rat shit.
Yeah.
The
toilet just sitting in the middle of an open room. I mean,
a clogged toilet just... I mean, or the working clock, as Ben likes to point out.
Yes.
But last comment on that. We should send that like house or that video to like Paranormal Activity, the people, and they should make a movie there, and then we can make money off of it. We should buy that house and then sell it as a set for a movie. Flip that fucker. I mean, they're paying.
That's a legitimately good.
They're paying $130 rent a piece, so that's $300 so much. So the mortgage on that is like $2,000 a year, $3,000 a year.
I actually think the rent's more. I did hear a number the other day that was significantly higher than that, and I almost fell over. But we'll end it there.
That's great.
So let's jump now to, and I know the trade deadline for fantasy hockey was last week. We will get into that a little bit. But let's switch over to this week, talk about the matchups that are obviously underway as we're here on Thursday. Talk about some of the implications and, of course, kind of where, you know, we'll kind of take a look here where the playoff picture, kind of how that's turning out. Okay. So matchup 1, Talkett's Book Service, 17-3. In first place currently versus Madonna Autogol 95, who, as we mentioned, is 12-8. He's actually in a 3-way tie record-wise with the Quickies and Blake Wheeler. I'm
just going to do a little plug-in so we don't want to...
Yeah, no problem. I'll continue to talk here. So the current score, Talkett's Book Service up 48-14. Some really lackluster performances to start the week.
Yeah, that's a real. Sorry for speaking off camera. That's a real low 4-day point total.
Well, and it stems from, and is that going to fit in there?
That's what she said.
Whatever. So an off topic, but we're not going to get on to this. Madonna Autogol is Sidney Crosby, and you asked why his points are so low. Crosby last night, a -1 and no shots on goal in Colorado.
Yeah, I heard that.
That certainly doesn't help. And as I said, we'll get into the trade talks and fantasy. He did trade for Carey Price, who actually has 2 losses this week, which is almost unheard of in 2015 for the Montreal goaltender. Yeah. So John really needs it this week. And kind of looking ahead, John and Jake Boss, who are more or less going to be battling for the 4th and final playoff spot, play each other next week. So if John doesn't get it this week, he will still have a good crack at it next week. And we'll jump down to Jake at this time as he's playing you this week.
Yep.
So a couple of tough matchups for teams that are on that playoff bubble. Blake Wheeler versus King of Quarter Zips. You currently lead 59-54, so that's a high-scoring game. But Boston's been able to keep pace with King of Quarter Zips.
Yeah, he has, surprisingly.
So we'll see. And as you mentioned, I think you got the Sharks going again tonight, which doesn't bode well for your opposition tomorrow night. So that's always the kicker with the King of Quarter Zip. So assuming, and we're just assuming here, you don't know what's going to happen, but if Blake Wheeler and Madonna Auto go lose to the top two teams in the league, very possible, they will face off each other next week, and it's going to be, I mean, that game means everything.
That's everything, yeah.
So just to kind of look ahead there, and that's a big one. Shaw Panthers and Bob's battling Bandits. Who the F cares? Odd man out versus
Who the F cares? He says.
Who the F cares? Quickies versus Goodnight Jim Kite, and we'll give the win right now to the Quickies, and they need it. They sit at 12-8. One of those three teams tied for the last two spots. The schedule for the Quickies moving forward is hilarious. I mean, you might as well give them the third spot now. At 12-8, I believe he has the Quickies. He has Ott, and he either has, I think he might actually have Fawcett, yeah.
Or, something like.
So whoever he has, it's not going to be much competition, so he will likely win out, and obviously when Boss and John play each other, one of those two teams has to lose. So Mendelsohn is going to be into a playoff spot. So as I just mentioned, it's going to come down to Boss versus John for the final spot.
Without fail, we'll get a tie next week. We haven't had a tie yet this season. Without fail, with fractional points, we'll have a tie.
And I'm 90% sure that in that situation, just to lay that out there, the winner, the tiebreaker, goes to the team that had the most goals.
That's completely fair. Yeah.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Because you both have 10 players that can score goals starting in your lineup. So
more or less.
Yeah. I'll completely fair. I can't believe I don't have a floss thing in my briefcase.
Excuse me for 1 second here.
So moving on here, I guess. So now you talked about that one?
I did. Okay, so I did want to shout out, I did breeze over Mansfield's matchup. He's still in it. Well, no, he's not in it. He's not. He's not. He's three wins behind. He's out.
Well, technically, if he wins, he would need Quickies.
He's out.
I mean, just by the math of it all, he could get 3 wins and no one else.
Well, Blake Wheeler or John is going to get a win when they play each other.
Right.
So that'd be 3. Okay.
Yeah, in the most convoluted, fucked up way.
Literally, it's less than a 0.1% chance that happens.
Well, yeah. I mean, Quickies would have to lose to Goodnight Jim Kite this week.
Yeah. And 2 other teams.
For just nostalgia's sake, can we click into Goodnight's roster and just see who's still playing there?
Well, you know what? The Kites actually did a little bit of a roster turnover. They finally dropped Mike Richards, who is not on an NHL team.
Hasn't been for about a month.
They dropped Evander Kane, who's on IR for the rest of the year. And they brought a couple guys in, sent a couple guys out. So it's actually respectable. And they had their lineup set for the last week or two, but now it's not set. So that's about it for the season. But I did want to give some credit to Mansfield because unfortunately he's not going to make the playoffs. But the last couple of weeks he's put up some big numbers. This is an impressive team. A lot of people were giving him a lot of shit regarding the trades.
But he put together a decent squad.
He did.
If you click in there, he doesn't have the star.
And I don't. And again, we said we're not going to spend a lot of time here on teams that aren't in the playoffs.
But he really doesn't have the star.
That's what he did. He traded me all the stars, and I traded him some good players that are getting the job done for him.
I'd say his most notable name. Oh, he has Landeskog. I mean, he has Hossa, who's had a good year.
I traded him. Hossa.
Yeah, that was recent. Joe Thornton is probably his most notable name. Jim Howard.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally my team of.
Yeah, it's not a great it's not. No one jumps off the page at you, but he built a good team.
Yeah, there's guys that are contributing. So unfortunately for him, it's just a little too late.
Too little, too late.
But I did want to.
We should touch on the trade deadline.
Well, I wanted to say about Brent. I swear he has a spidey sense when he knows that we're going to be filming a podcast.
Oh, he fired over a couple messages.
As always, he knows. And I would have probably said this about Robbie Wright in regards to fantasy football. Those are two guys that they can smell when attention's available.
That's fair.
Of course, I get a text from Brent this morning, um, and we will talk about it briefly here. The situation in Florida the other night, where Luongo starts the game, Luongo gets hurt.
I didn't watch this game.
Montoya comes in, Montoya gets hurt. So now they send back McKenzie, who's a center, to go in the locker room, and he starts putting on goalie equipment. While all this is going on, there's maybe a 15-minute break. Montoya goes back in net. He can't move.
Yeah, so
he literally can't move.
I wish there was video of that because apparently he's out 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So, like, he must have really have been injured.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
And
you could probably find it online.
Sam was saying the first shot, like, went in and literally he, like, barely braced himself for the shot.
Yeah, he was in some serious pain. They show, then, as all this is going on, they zoom over and Luongo's out in what the announcers deemed street clothes.
Which looked to be a suit. I feel like I saw that picture floating around Facebook or whatever, Twitter.
Then the goalie coach is back there signing an emergency one-day contract. He's now getting dressed. McKenzie's back out in his player equipment. Chaos in the streets. Now the goalie coach is in the runway. Montoya he's tapping out. He can't go anymore. And out of left field, Luongo comes back in the net and finishes the game.
That's a shitload of goalie equipment. It makes you realize like how many fucking people like whose equipment was McKenzie putting on?
I think he put on Luongo's equipment. I mean, they probably have like enough to put together one extra set. But like
each guy probably has 2 of everything. But like it's just like
it was
McKenzie going back there just like, well, I guess I'll put these on.
So, it was literally chaos in the streets.
You couldn't. There's about 2 ways you could interest me in a panther, Leaf. A cat hosting Leaf. Somebody dies by like a skate cut to the throat, or there's 7 goalies being used, and that was about it. But the Leafs are a disaster.
So the Leafs
almost lose this
that
game.
Goal you referenced on Montoya turns out to be the winning goal. So the Leafs win 3-2. In a huge game for the Panthers.
Which sucks.
At the time, they're sitting 2 points out of a wild card spot right behind Boston. They win that game and they're tied. So they get no points out of that. They lose in regulation. And they actually dominated the last 10 minutes.
That's what you were saying. They were just firing shots.
It was one of those games, and I texted Sam this. You just felt that the Panthers were going to somehow, some way pull it out. And, despite...
their best efforts.
Well, despite me wanting the Leafs for other reasons, and one being that of course the bet between Brent and I in regards to the Panthers playoffs, I felt myself rooting for him. Like this would just be an all-time classic win. So I get a text today, and of course now both Florida goalies are out.
They called up.
So I get the text today from Brent. He says, "Got to give it to Lou. Went in hurt. Such a character guy. The ultimate teammate. God bless Lou." And I said, "And goodbye, Cats." He responded, "Yeah, right, my boy Ellis will take over and lead those pesky Cats," as he always refers to him as. And I said, "Who the F is Ellis?" He said, "Dan Ellis, one of the all-time greats." And that's where we've ended.
Brett is just a fun kid to go get a beer with because he'll just talk. Brent. I think I said Ben. Ben is also,
you did say Brent.
I said Brent. Yeah. So, because he'll just talk about the Cats, and this kid can just talk hockey. And he gave if you could pick one adjective in the world to describe that Cats team, it's probably pesky. Because if you can name more than 4 players on that team, I'll give you a reach around. And that are currently active, because now Montoya and Luongo are out.
Right.
And so, I mean, they have the defensive rookie of the year on that team. And then after that, it's like
well, I found myself actually watching a lot more Cats
than you
I have
thought.
Recently.
Yeah, and
they actually have a really good young team. I think Brent was ahead of the game here, and I hate to admit that. I really do. But he did see something in this team, and I saw it the other day watching them. Just a really young core group of guys, and of course they just brought in Yager. Who really seems to be kind of embracing the role as the old guy. I saw him, his first game there, he's on the bench really talking, like excited to be there and like explaining things to players.
He wasn't dying alive, I guess, or whatever the fuck it was.
Which
or,
was 15
I have enough rings, I just want to beach with girls, or whatever that one quote. You have some quotes. You stick a microphone in people's face sometimes. I think they just black out. I don't know.
Well, he's come a long way in the last 15 years.
He got rid of that fucking earring.
So...
I'm getting testy, so let's get to Penn social media.
Well, Okay. All right. So we'll now So what we'll do? Revito has been. He's been
Rightfully so. There's no
I don't-
defense in the other direction of this.
Well, okay. So, and I've been saying it for years, and I've unfollowed, and I've refollowed, and I've unfollowed. I've been through a never-ending cycle of what I should do in regards to Penn social media, in particular Twitter. And the other day, and we really haven't talked about it too much in the past, but I have felt this way for a long time.
Rightfully
you
so.
had some strong opinions on it. You took to Twitter.
People came to defense of both sides of it.
It has been nuts.
It's a riot.
What is your Twitter handle if people want to go check this out? This is a sight to see.
And then it's spelled Rovisto, Rovisto. And so I add that little extra letter. I don't know who started that. I feel like Rod Kern.
Yeah. I feel like I never asked you what that was all about.
I'm pretty sure it was Rod Kern who
I've
just
actually
started
never-
saying Rovisto, and Rubio kept going with it, and then like everyone kept going with it, and then
you'd kind of roll with the punches.
right. And it's actually nice because it's not technically my last name, so if people search that, they're not going to find. If they search my last name, they're not going to find that. And Roy Kern actually thinks it's my last name.
He calls you Austin Revisto.
Correct. And he the one time I he's like, oh, it's the Revisto, and I like laughed, and he was like, then like 2 sentences later, he introduced me to one of his like corporate buyers as Austin Revisto, and Rod had a little chuckle too, and I did too. We're walking down the stairs at what's this place called? You worked there?
Equipment Corporation of America.
Yeah, and we're literally like
they're a sponsor.
Yeah, we're literally like they don't think they need the money, but yeah, so they're like this. We're walking down the stairs laughing, and this guy's just sort of showing us around, this business partner, and I was like, Rod, does your dad actually think my last name's Revisto? And as only Rod can do, like out of the side of his mouth, like cackle. He's like, I don't fucking know what he thinks, like just the classic Rod response. But yeah, so
back to
social media. I just have a problem with people, like, I don't know. I don't even know where to start. So more or less, this all stemmed from it came to a pussy fucking head of a zit on Sunday when the Penguins, who are in a this is what social media does. The Penguins social media, you wouldn't know that the Penguins are fighting to not be a wild card team right now. Like they lost last night. You would have
no idea.
If Washington wins tonight, the Penguins are a wild card team. So, like, you're playing the number 2 team in the conference, which you don't really want to play the Red Wings right now, I don't think, or the Islanders for that matter. You'd really much rather enjoy the Caps or the Rangers. And you could debate that, whatever, blah, 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 bullshit. But, like, the Pens social media, they won't make fans... They won't educate fans on, okay, so the Penguins need to win this game or at least get a point. You say, like, get a point to the average Penguin fan, and they're like, what do you mean, like an assist?
Yeah.
Like, no, like, take the game into overtime. Like, these are 4-point games we're playing now. And if you said that to a fan, they wouldn't know what a 4-point game meant. That meant that you can take 2 points away from another team by beating them. And people are like, oh, like, oh, okay, I sort of understand that. But it's like, just the capacity of it all pisses me the flying fuck off because we have... I mean, I know Toronto has the whole country of Canada just like flocks around Toronto. They're like our Dallas Cowboys or the New York Yankees. People just like them for the sake of liking them because that's what they know. But like apparently they have a pretty ignorant fan base as well, a pretty unknowledgeable, unintelligent fan base that doesn't encapsulate what a true fan of their team is, like a diehard blue bleeding Maple Leafs fan who's been watching that team for 40 years struggle. Now, these Pens fans, it's like, yeah, and so people, I'm not bitching about the bandwagon. Don't get me wrong. The bandwagon is great because the bandwagon means that you have something that's great, that's good, and now these fans will become, encapsulated in most of the aspects of the team, which is awesome. And people will bitch like, oh, there's Pens bandwagon fans. Well, you want the bandwagon because if you don't have that, that means either A, your team sucks, or, B, you don't even have a team. So... I'll take the bandwagon fans all day, but let's try to educate the fans who don't know too much. Like, my mother still goes to this game. I swear to these games. I swear to fucking God, she's been a season ticket holder for 3 years now, and she goes to watch the fucking puck sit on the Jumbotron, sit under the hat, and do the shuffle. and then her favorite part of the game is holding up the number. And if she understood the game of hockey, she's been a season ticket holder for 3 years. I told Eric this last night at like 11:30. She still couldn't explain icing to you. She couldn't explain icing, and I guarantee you, I would put the number at 35% of Penn season ticket holders couldn't explain icing.
Yeah.
Is that number even? That number may be low.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that because there was a guy just in Sinclair Country Club the other night. We were talking hockey, and he admitted he's been to a few games, but he jokes around. He's like, it's hard to get into. I don't understand the game. I still don't understand icing. Was his quote. He's like, I have no idea what that is. And then we default talking back to West Virginia football.
Oh, this is your guy. Okay.
My
now, don't get me wrong. I know I'm being pretty ignorant right now because, like, if I know people, like, somebody be like, well, you don't know what offsides is in soccer. It's like, I at least understand the concept. I don't portray myself as this diehard fan and then not realize. Then I'm liking pictures of selfies of dogs on social media. And this is what made me snap, is knowing, like, we have these season ticket holders. We have all this freaking money as a franchise. We're a salary cap spending team. We have amazing players that anyone in the NHL would hitch their wagon to. And we're promoting on social media, instead of teaching people the game or showing updated rosters or talking about the trade deadline, or I think my tweet yesterday was trade deadline, this upcoming West Coast road trip, which is we're playing 3 awesome teams in a row here. Anaheim, San Jose, and the Kings. Like 3 heavy fucking hitting teams. This is going to be like some of the best hockey you get to watch the Pens play all year. Well, hopefully they play well. And, this playoff race, that is a legitimate playoff race. Or talking about how we should be pumping like Chris Letang's tires here for the Norris Trophy. Not talking about how many fucking likes he got on an Instagram selfie. Like literally, whoever put that on deserves to be cunt punched. And right. This is on fucking YouTube forever. I don't give a shit. Okay, don't hire people to do your stuff based on I don't even care if it's looks, but just know the sport. Understand what you're talking about. You would not hire Eric and I, and I'm not going to sit here and say we're good-looking people. We're at least well put together, but you're also not going to hire us to sit there and fucking review movies. I mean, it's not even saying fashion. I'm not even going to say that, because that's just so outlandish. I'm not going to review a movie. I'll watch a movie. I'll say, okay, that was okay. But you're going to watch, you're going to ask some of these social fucking media people to describe a Pens power play. You talk about an umbrella, and they're going to look at you and say it's not fucking raining outside. And, this makes me want to punch a puppy.
All right. And we're going to cut him off there.
And I'm just fucking pissed. Stop talking about dogs and selfies and fucking finger blasting each other. Just talk about the game. That's all we're all fucking asking. But instead you just fucking... You teeter with me on the edge. You're just making me want to unfollow you on fucking Twitter. But I still want the updates because there's some days where I forget that we have a Penguin game because some of us have real fucking jobs where we actually have to know things. And you just sit there and just fucking talk about puppies and Lewis the fucking bulldog. And if I hear one more goddamn fucking thing about this goddamn dog, I'm gonna punch my mother because she won't stop talking about it. And I'm fucking done.
All right, thank you. And that is what has just happened. Has really become a staple of the Intent to Injure podcast. The Revito snap that puts us about 10 minutes beyond the schedule.
That was long fucking overdue.
But it was, and on a lesser degree.
And I'm not calling out anyone in general, just the whole fucking team.
Yeah. No, and I tend to agree with the majority of your thoughts there in regards to the Penn social media. But I'm gonna let you cool off there for a second. Maybe take a sip of water.
Coffee is not exactly helping. He's got some pre-workout
that's why I
in
said
the car.
maybe a little water would do you well. So we're gonna turn the page here. Let's jump in real quick to the trade deadline and just a ton of trades made last week.
We're actually doing very well with time.
So going over here some of the trades, and maybe you can just throw in your thoughts. The first trade, the first bomb was dropped on Tuesday, February 24th, 12:40 p.m. And I actually know you felt pretty strongly about this trade. Madonna Autogol trades Pat Chiaretti and Fleury to Talkage Book Service, and in return he gets Jason Spezza and Carey Price.
Yeah, this was a nice head scratcher. This was a legitimate head scratcher.
And you know what? On the surface though.
Ugh.
I did not realize until I went out, because that morning I got up and I'm like, damn, I need a left winger. Literally the only left winger I had in my lineup was Ovechkin. And I
Not
looked,
a bad one to have.
not a bad one to have, no. But literally, I was losing starts because I didn't have somebody for that position. So
Right.
I went out, I looked around, as I mentioned, you can only trade with playoff teams. So I went over and looked at Johnny's roster. I had not made a trade with him this year, and I was shocked to see the stats of Pat Chiaretti. And I actually didn't think he was going to want to move him initially.
That was why I saw patches and I was like, "Holy shit!"
He's been a hell of a player. He flies under the radar out there in Montreal because that's a team that's you hear a lot about Price and Subban and all those guys, but he is a heck of a player and he puts up huge number. He's like a plus 36 or something.
Oh yeah,
absurd.
Yeah. I would say almost 30. He'll have likely 30 goals and 50 assists. He's a stud.
Although you look at Spezza, but he's actually been. He's the first line center in Dallas. Now that Sagan's hurt, and he's the first line center on the power play. And he's playing with Jamie Benn, and he's getting points nearly every game. So, not a bad guy to have. Obviously, we'd all take Price over Fleury. But as far as fantasy points go, not too much of a drop-off is the way I saw it.
Because, save percentage doesn't really matter. Because we're not playing in a rotisserie league. Yeah.
So that trade happened. And about 6 hours later, another trade involving Talkers Book Service. This one was with Jonathan Quickies. The Quickies traded away Justin Falk, defenseman out of Carolina, and the injured Kevin Shattenkirk for Talkers Book Service's Ryan Sutter and Marion Gabbard.
You want to talk about a player that just has had a shitty year. Ryan Suter.
Suter, yeah.
He needs to change the scenery, I think. He
just had one a couple years ago. I actually forgot that he played for Nashville. Somebody brought that up.
Suter and Weber when they played together? Yeah, good luck scoring. But I just think it's for him, it's become what's become for us our days of the week. It's like Groundhog Day. It's like you show up at Subway every day. And that guy has not much to deal with. That team has some talent. Niederreiter's turning into talent.
On the back.
Parise. On the back end, Scandella. It's turned into a decent defense. Decent defenseman. But it's just what's his face? Dubnik and goals played really well recently. But it's I feel like that team needs a real big shakeup. When they got Suter and Parise same day.
Right. Yeah, and basically nothing since.
Right, and it's weird. It's that team's been completely stagnant. They had a terrible start to the year, then they won 9 in a row, and now it's they're
well, you know what? They did get Devin Dubnyk, which seemed to spark them.
And and who in their right mind thought Devin Dubnyk could
spark anything? He could spark a match.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're lucky that kid can turn on a lighter, but yeah.
So that trade happened. I was looking to bolster my defense. I mentioned the injured Kevin Shattenkirk. He's going to be close. I'm hoping just to get him back for the last week or two for playoffs. But he was actually leading the NHL in defensive points when he was injured. He was the number one guy.
Yeah, he's been out for a little while. I can smell your hidesy over here.
Yeah. So that trade happened. And then jumping up here, a third trade happened, and this was involving Talkers Book Service. There was a little bit of backlash. Everybody was a little bit taken back by the fact the first place team moved 7 guys in return for 7 guys. And this happened, as you see, at 11:54 a.m. That was 6 minutes before the trade deadline. I'm not even going to get into, and I know you know, how hard it was to make a trade with Jacob Boss.
This is I'll give it to you in one sentence. If I didn't have an iPhone, if I still had an iPhone 4S, it would have been broken. I would have just flushed it down the toilet, I think. And collected the insurance money on it.
And you know what? I was at the point where there was many times where I just wanted to say, I'm out, I'm done, I don't want any of this.
But he reels you back in.
Well, I invested so much of my time going back and forth that I needed a deal to happen just to let me know that I didn't just waste literally 3 days of my life trying to make a deal. So this deal, Boss traded away Henrik Sedin, Shea Weber, and the injured Kyle Okposo, and that's the same idea as Shattenkirk. Hopefully he's back for the last couple weeks for playoffs. So I made a couple investments there, since I don't really need the wins now. And the idea for the teams trading these guys away was that they're getting healthy players in return now that'll help them get into the playoffs. So he traded those 3 guys for Drew Doughty, Tyler Toffoli, and Derek Stepan. So, of course, for the last 2 trades, the jury's out. If both of the injured guys come back and perform to the level that they were before they got injured, I probably get the better end of the deal in the long run. But as for short term, definitely benefits the teams that were able to get some return now for their injured players that they obviously weren't going to be able to play. So, 7 guys moved, 14 in total at the trade deadline. I noticed, we obviously had a brief conversation. You didn't want to get involved in trades, but every other playoff team did.
Yeah. I don't know. There was nothing Okay, so I don't know. I created such with myself, and I think rightfully so, and I think unbiasedly so. People kept coming after my Sharks. Uh, I mean, what's his face? Boss was like relentless on trying to get either Couture or Pavelski or Burns. He wanted Burns. I mean, in hindsight, it would have been. I mean, I would have been the GM of the year if I would have moved Giordano. But for anything, frankly,
hurt the following day.
But
and I did inquire about him.
You did,
well,
yeah. I was like, I don't think so. But so it was interesting. I just I look, and the history of this. I've been smoked, like Pompeii buried under a volcano. Crimea smoked in terms of trades in fantasy football. I traded for Aaron Rodgers on a Wednesday. It wasn't 10 o'clock the following Sunday evening. He was out for 8 weeks. So I have had issues. I have security and emotional detachment issues with trading players in fantasy football. So, and I think that had a small carryover. I see where my record is. I saw how well I was doing each week. Streaming the goalies, I have 4 goalies now that I can just kind of plug and play as I want. And I felt like I was pat. I used the waiver. The Giordano thing kind of hurts because I had to pick. I think I picked up Cam Fowler, real stiff, but whatever. That I actually did that last night. I did the drop because I was like,
you mentioned your hesitation.
I was half asleep and I was just confirm. And I just let it go. Giordano, my
because it have to hurt every time you'd log in and look at your roster
and it's just
see that name.
IR. And then he even has a game tonight, so there's his little thing next to him, and it's just
you're all straight yes, I have somebody that can plug in.
And I was no, I can't plug in the Norris Trophy winner. But yeah, so good for Letang now. I'm glad.
Yeah.
He has a legit.
This opens up a great possibility for Mr. Christopher Letang.
It's
his to lose, I think.
I would say
at this point.
I haven't probably done a 180 more on a player than him in the last 3 years of my life ever.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the potential has always been there. It's been about putting a complete game together for him. He's always had the offensive upside. But that would also leave him a little bit vulnerable defensively.
The ability, when you will go to a game, just watch him close in the neutral zone. These are NHL players skating forwards. He'll skate. He'll come from the red. His patented he'll cycle. He'll pinch. He'll be the first guy back on there'll be a rush and he'll catch up and be skating backwards by the time they reach our blue line. It's amazing. Yeah. It is amazing to watch. His legs have to just be I mean, I've watched some of those workout videos and it's kind of scary.
I've seen those.
Oh my God,
he's a beast. But just to wrap up here, we're going to jump from fantasy to reality. Wanted to get any concluding thoughts you had on the NHL trade deadline. Of course, the Pens made a couple of moves.
It's kind of
we mentioned more or less lateral is the best way to describe it. I don't think any of the moves they made are going to prove to be significant.
If we win a cup by either of those 3 guys, whatever. Although I think the winning trade solidifies the forwards, which is nice. I think the fact that you can sit Craig Adams now diligently. Although I think that should be the poll. Who would you rather play? In the playoffs, Craig Adams or Bo Bennett?
On the 4th line is the kicker too. It's not
right.
Bennett it's going to be so hard to produce him on the 4th line.
This will take 3 minutes. But last night we looked up the Penguins roster from last playoff season, and it was to the point. Big Billy Zaleski was sitting with us too. We were in tears, laughing. We couldn't guess. There was a name, and I'll tell you. We'll say this out here, and so I'll say the name, and then I'll give you to the end of this rant to guess. A guy by the name of Chuck Charles. We had a guy named Charles on our team last year.
Yeah, he was referred to as Chuck. He played. He was a forward. See if you can figure out what his last name was. And he played a nice amount of games.
Yeah. And literally, we were sitting upstairs watching the Pens game last night, and you said we had a guy on our named Chuck last year. I said, "There's no way." And literally, it took us 20 minutes. And right when you said it, before you said his last name, I remembered it. But then we had another guy, a 20-goal scorer, come from the Rangers.
Yeah.
Who we couldn't think of for forever. I mean,
we're just reminiscing of really how bad last year's roster was.
People bitch at Biles. He did a pretty damn good job with that team.
Yeah.
You'd give me playing first 5 minutes.
And now you kind of see why Shiro isn't here anymore as well. When you see some of the guys, and we'll let you think about the 2 he just referenced. But some other names, guys that were filling in. Obviously, we all remember Brian Gibbons, Chris Connor, Harry Zonerchuk, Lee Stepniak.
Who was that name? Pyrecell? That name you were
Adam Perel.
Oh, it was bad. I mean, it was freaking.
I'm trying to think of
Tanner Ass.
Tanner Glass.
Oh.
Joe Vitale. I mean,
we were
the
justifying.
list goes on and on.
Ugh.
That team never had a chance.
We were justifying Joe Vitale playing good minutes, as on the third line. Woof.
That team never had a chance.
You could say Marcel Gotch had the most talent in our bottom six sans Brett Sutter last year.
Who?
Who did I say?
Brandon
Sutter. I said Brent. Oops.
But so, anyways, the names you were referencing, and if you probably haven't picked up on them, it was Chucky Kobasu was brutal, and Taylor Pyatt, whatever that guy's name was. A couple of bums. That team last year was bad, and they were trying to cram those guys, shove those guys down our throats, trying to tell them that they're telling us they're legitimate NHL players. Get out of my face with that. That's always
the quote from Rossi. He's a legitimate center.
Yoey.
When you tell me he's a legitimate player, that's when I know that he's not.
Yeah, that's usually a good sign that
you have to
don't expect much.
You have to justify that, you know. But so we're running out of time here.
Yeah,
we've done pretty well though. We said we wanted to be out by 2:20, and we have 12:20, so we got about 18 seconds left here.
And then Pens also, we didn't even really get into the trades, but they traded Dupre for Lovejoy. A lot of backlash on that one, but it is what it is. I think the Pens have enough guys like Dupre where that's really not going to matter. You get Lovejoy, who probably can make a bigger impact.
I honestly think that trade was more of a future one. Because if Dupre kept playing who he was playing, he's going to go to arbitration. He's going to win. So he was. If you look, he's in the top 6 in the NHL in hits. He was.
Yeah, well, that's kind of.
Sue, how are you?
Hey, Aunt Sue.
And so we a couple guests rolling in here at the end of the podcast. But so I mean, Dupre was going to get paid, and I think they actually made a nice move in the future. Now they have Harrington and Dumoulin coming up at some point.
Yeah, and the way Pouliot's been playing,
I think, and then we always forget that Mata's.
Yeah.
Coming back.
Yeah.
Hey!
We got a little dog here now. But, all right, we're going to sign off. Of course, thank you, everybody, for joining us for the Week 20 recap, Week 21 preview.
Chop.
We will be back. The next time we join you, probably in a week or two, we should have a pretty good idea of the playoff picture. Would you knock it off? Just wait for 10 seconds. Let us finish
the Chub on the screen. She's a little mascot.
Well, go pick him. It's a him. Pick him up. Why? Here. He's got a sweater on.
Yeah, little Penn State, little Sandusky action.
It looks like he just had a little something done. That's
where?
I don't know. So we're gonna wrap it up here
with
a little guest appearance from Chubbs
McGee.
Chubbs, who's actually a Dupre fan. He's not
happy.
He wants no business of this, and he actually says he's boycotting the Pens for the remainder of the year. He's not happy. So signing off, Eric, Austin, and Chubbs. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time on the Intent to Injure podcast.
All right, Chubb.